What's in the pot?
Soup.
Krastorio 2, Space Age and Deathworld.
Good. One try?
I don't really care for...
Deathworld. Hello again! One more time after another short break. But at least back to Factorio, you know. This time we are diving into Krastorio 2 Spaced Out. And to spice things out, we'll do it on Deathworld, as I have never beaten Krastorio, nor never played Deathworld. Strange, I know, so it's time to cross those off my bucket list. Starting as usual, with forgetting about main early stone tactic and mining stone from patch, quickly realizing that I lost my mind and went with the good path, running around and chasing huge rocks. Once I had some furnaces ready, I went back and prepared basic iron smelter. I definitely over-engineered the coal mine, mostly to separate the overlapping resource patches, and set up a single copper furnace, just to get a few plates going. Since we are playing on Deathworld, we need some fishes to stay alive, which on Space Age unfortunately spoil. With them I headed to the nearest nest, as it would be a real problem in a moment, and using the classic turret trick, I quickly destroyed the first of many biter bases in the early game. Feeling confident after that win, I thought we are capable of repeating that success, so I headed to the second base. However, I quickly realized I wasn't ready for it yet, and had to make a tactical retreat. But to the main task, automation. I set up a small bait factory, just to have a steady supply accumulating in the meantime. Next, it was time for electricity. A strange thing here is that pumps actually need power to work, but fortunately, the small reactor from our crashed ship allowed me to jumpstart the first boiler and two turbines, using a simple coal chest. Finally, I chose to upgrade miners to electric ones, less pollution and bigger output, while also rebuilding my belt production to keep things more organized. During the second clash with biters, this time armed with stockpiled ammo, everything went smoothly. However, yet another base appeared nearby. I'm afraid those problems won't stop anytime soon. Since I didn't want to make a proper factory just yet, I added a single assembler for red tech cards, automating everything via chests. While expanding our factory to sustain power, I ran belts from the coal mine to the boilers, fully automating power. I also set up a small wall production to solve attack problems in the future, but we'll need more than just walls to do that. Using chests for everything isn't ideal, so I set up a small assembly line for basic circuits. The twist in Krastorio 2 is that while they require fewer materials overall, they also need wood to craft. Another thing were inserters. Crafting them manually is quite tedious, so I once again opted for a simple chest-fed system to keep a steady supply coming. And that wasn't for nothing, as I started building furnace stack, which uses 40 of those. Having them automated is really life-saving. With that momentum, I built two additional smelting lines, one for iron and one for copper, both powered by a single fuel belt. And as you can see, I will build everything on my own, this time no prepared blueprints. I went back to my basic science production, and once again two assemblers and chests, all to have a steady supply of them while I work on other things. The next material I needed was steel, a total nightmare. Here it's harder than a human trying to breathe underwater. You need regular iron plates plus coke, which is produced by smelting coal and wood together. Honestly, pretty awful process. So I prepared, again, a small chest fed up system, and was finally ready to craft some massive steel chests for my mold design. Since everything requires lots of intermediates, the easiest way is having them in huge storage, and just machines around it. I mistakenly thought I could filter individual chest slots, but that didn't work, so I had to use the circuit conditions instead. You will see how that holds up. Right in the middle of working, the power plant came under fire. Not a massive raid, but it was enough to destroy few turbines. I quickly got to repair the damage and set up some more defenses there. And then...
Oh shit, here we go again.
I totally panicked and started firing, but bullets doesn't work the same on Krastorio. I tried placing turrets, nearly dying. Only by eating fishes I could stay alive, and was able to use shotgun, and in the process accidentally destroying my own machinery. But I did manage to stop them. Getting back to normal work, I returned to my perfectly designed mall, and automated a few more essential buildings. Since our science production was moving at a abysmal slow pace, I set up 3 assemblers for green and red tech cards. It's still a simple setup, fed by chests, again. But upgrade is an upgrade. With a steady flow of iron plates from smelter, I finally got ammo production running. I also fortified a new perimeter, just in time, to see that it was definitely worth doing. In my perfect mall, not all inserters were getting power, so I researched upgraded power poles. Placing them solved the coverage issue. Deciding it was time to take the fight to them, I grabbed my sniper rifle, awesome Krastorio edition, and went near my enemy base, prepared turrets and started destroying nests, as you can see from a really long distance. This rifle is totally OP. and I used the same exact strategy to clear out yet another neighborhood in base. It was finally time for a proper science build, starting from red cards, as now we have given production ratios I had in my head plan, how the production should look like. 1 assembler for cores filling into 5 card assemblers, plus 1 for blank cards, will be plenty for our current needs. Following the same logic, I set up 5 assemblers for green tech cards, sharing the blank card supply. With just 1 gear assembler and 2 for green circuits, I hooked everything up to nearby labs. That finished the whole project. Compact and perfect. While researching, I headed on to another adventure to deal with some biter nests. Same as before, turrets, sniper rifle, and total destruction of all enemies. All this effort was to secure a new iron patch, as our starting one is already depleting. I wiped out another base on the coastline and obliterated a small worm in the forest. In the meantime, I focused on researching oil and clearing out the last base in this perpetual war. Quick break for triggering oil research by mining it, then headed back to the base and set up silicon and glass smelter, before returning again to oil for a small plastic production. With those steps completed, nothing stood in my way of finally researching my ultimate goal, the flamethrower turret, arguably the most powerful defense in Factorio. The word defense should have been a hint for me, because when I tried to use it offensively for the first time in my life on another base, I learned the hard way that defenses should only be used to defend. So I went back to fighting biters using my old reliable way. I finally located a new iron patch, but since it was guarded by 3 medium-sized bases, I thought maybe, and feel free to laugh at me here, I just hadn't used enough fire for the first time. But even 5 of them firing at once not only did nothing, but also it made me look like complete stupido. 50-100 hours in Factorio, and yet I couldn't connect that defenses only work to defend, not to attack. Insane knowledge. Insane knowledge. To make matter worse, by the use of flamethrowers, I ignited forest. All those great pollution cleaners changed into pollution makers. For reasons unknown even to myself, I decided to play firefighter, nearly dying there, and only to end up saving a grand total of about 12 trees. But all that war struggle wasn't for nothing, it was all for Project Wall. Sounds epic, but it's just fencing myself from all those other nests, starting from the right flank. A double row of walls, some gun turrets and a few flamethrowers should be more than enough. In the name of that project, I also had to clear out yet first, second and third base. I can already hear you asking, Omega, how much more time are you going to spend fighting biters instead of actually beating Krastorio? Okay, it's my first Deathworld, I'm a little bit nervous, I promise there isn't much left. So, 4th, 5th and 6th, that should cover the northern part of our territory, so the next step was fortifying the area using the same wall and turret pattern. Meanwhile, a few radars are scanning the map, and when I look at new territory, one thing caught my attention. Do you see it? There was a peninsula! Why I see such a gorgeous thing right after building their wall? So where was I? Oh right! Fighting biters! I took out another massive base, then dealt with a double nest combo, and finally cleared the third site. Walls, gun turrets and flamethrowers. Phew! Mission accomplished. Back to our perfect mall, which is totally not perfect. A new idea sparked in my mind. Wagons! In wagons you can set the slot of the wanted item. Now when it's working I can deconstruct it. I swear I'm going to lose my mind trying to design a Krastorio item mall. So the decision has been made. Since I'm clearly intellectually not capable of building a mall that actually works, I will aim for the no-brainer solution that doesn't require any brain cells to operate. I started with a complete overhaul of the base. Step 1, tearing down the old labs and tech card production. Step 2, setting up a proper iron mine that covers the entire patch. And step 3, safety first. I'm finally finishing Project Wall, on the southern border in the same fortified style. And step 4, more smelters. I said more! More! Now that the essential components are ready, it's time to build the bridge mall. Just the items needed to get to boss. I started with MK2 beds, but I didn't like it, so I quickly rebuilt it to include undergrounds and splitters. With beds, I was finally able to scale up and add 4 more copper smelting lines. I call it a bridge mall for a reason. I'm not planning to spend much time on it. I'm fully aware it's an absolute monstrosity, or maybe it is actually a good mall in some way. I don't know. Of course, those hungry smelters need a constant supply of ore, so setting up a proper copper mine was next logical step. When I think now, it's strange it took me so long to do that. As you can see, I have decided to go with a main bus base. So with copper and iron ready, the next thing were circuits. We will use the recipe that also uses wood. So I started by setting up greenhouses. A central assembler supplied them with seeds. Once they have what they need, wood will go onto belt, and then to the circuits production. With all materials prepared, I built a standard green circuit setup. Clever belting and building it 4 times will provide solid output. I turned the wood production, and just like that, we had green chips ready. But you know what's bothering me? The darkness. It's a pain to play in, and probably even worse to watch. That's why I put all of my effort into getting night vision. I started from small battery line, just for few batteries for armor, paired them with solar panels, and finally, freedom from the dark. You know, I don't have algaeas on my eyes. You also don't. So... there, that's infinitely better. Right, where was I? Oh yes, materials. Now for the toughest one of them all, steel. I have a habit of overbuilding, and this was no exception. 32 steel furnaces give 1 full red belt of steel. For that, I will need 1 whole red belt of iron plates, so 2 furnace stacks for that, and greenhouses to make wood for coke. Our existing iron mine couldn't possibly keep up with that behemoth of a smelter, so you might think I would go for that patch on the top of the map, right? Wrong! But luckily I found another one. I quickly set up mine there, covering the entire patch, and pulled straight to the base. With all of those miners, I expanded power production with a second row of boilers and turbines, and not so long after, iron began flowing to our base, and new steel smelter. Next are electronic components, which are a notorious hassle in the Krastorio early game. To craft them you need 3 ingredients: glass, silicon and plastic. I picked a spot near a stone patch, quickly set up a mine, and placed few crushers to produce sand. Half of that sand goes toward glass, and the other half towards silicon. I kept everything close together, to not pull belts all over the land. Right next to all of that I prepared few assemblers to craft the components and connected power. Oh, I really enjoy looking at new fresh production lines that get supplied and starts working. But we are still missing one final piece: plastic. Near the starting leg I set up a few refineries and chemical plants, connected coal from main mine and oil, making first plastic bars. Once the plastic was done, I dragged the belt over to the component production. And finally those pesky things are automated. Now not only we could start making red circuits, but also modules. So around the main bus component belt I placed 4 assemblers, to start stockpiling speed, productivity, quality and efficiency modules. Right next to the green chips, I started working on the red ones. In Krastorio, the recipe is similar to the base game, but instead of plastic you need those electronic components. I just finished. Since the logic is the same, the build was pretty familiar, just with one different material. With that momentum I went straight into a complete overhaul of red and green tech card production. I rebuilt them to be more interconnected. Again, near to that I placed few labs, finishing the first transformation of the base. Now it's time for something new: blue tech cards. The recipe is once again a step up from the vanilla version, requiring glass, red silicon and sulfuric acid. Even so, the overall design of production line is actually quite straightforward. Back to the raffinery, I need to produce that acid. It's a simple setup, just 2 chemical plants and some water, plus some iron plates from chest, but shh. I ran a long pipe to the tech card production, and we are officially in the business of chemical cards. And then it hit me, so why not put them to the labs? 3 bonus science packs are total no-brainer, and are always welcomed. Then I deconstructed whole raffinery. Why? Because with the blue science finally unlocked, it was time to upgrade to advanced oil processing. Now in addition to oil we need water, but that's a small price to pay for doubling our output. I added chemical plants to crack the excess heavy and light oil, and set up a small lubricant production. With the foundation ready I rebuilt the plastic production, and did the same for the sulfuric acid, completing the new and improved raffinery. Next I set up a mine on that small stone patch in the forest, crushed stone into sand and started extracting chlorine and hydrogen from it. The hydrogen is just a byproduct that will vent into the atmosphere, but the chlorine is a key to mining rare resources. Speaking of which, it was finally time to go after those rare metals. I set up a proper mining operation, hooked up the chlorine, and the first ores were going on belts, and didn't think much of them at the time. However, it turns out they have a smaller resource drain, similar to biolabs, but here we have 80%. Realizing this, I immediately started swapping out my old ones for new ones. As I have said before, free science packs are always welcomed. Then I unlocked an unexpected achievement, burning 10,000 trees. It was strange because I hadn't intentionally lit up any forest. I quickly scanned the whole map and discovered huge fire caused by the flamethrowers defending our perimeter. Sadly, the forest was lost, and with it the pollution barrier. Now I'm gonna expect a lot more biter attacks. It was finally time for blue chips. At least they are a bit easier to manage, since they don't require 20 green circuits, just red ones, rare metals and acid. I slapped in some productivity modules, because why not, and the whole production started flawlessly. With that new demand we needed more red circuits, so I quickly doubled their production capacity. Now for the final milestone, flying robot frames. The last stop before bots. These are necessarily hard to make, only problem is that it's multi-stage process. Normal engines and electric ones are the same as in the base game. Then just few electric components and batteries to produce the finished frames. While the frames were accumulating, I set up a small production of low density structures. Since the recipe is the same as in the vanilla, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Right after that I go to rocket fuel. Few changes from vanilla, as it is mix of iron plates, light oil and oxygen in the fuel refinery. By now you can probably guess exactly where we are heading next. To space! I'm not aiming for a massive sprawl in Nauvis Factorio, like I did in my first Space Age run. And if you haven't seen that series yet, click here and check it out. I packed the essentials into the rocket and send them up to the first space platform, whose task will be making space science. For now just small setup, single asteroid collector getting everything to the hub, which then distributes it to the crushers, furnaces and assemblers. And from assemblers, space data cards go back to the hub and are sent straight down to the surface, back on the ground. We take those, combine them with blank cards, get productivity module bonus, and we get space tech cards. Those quickly go to labs, and there we can finally research holy logistics system. With that milestone I loaded robots to the roboports, and the real work on the factory could finally begin. I started with my ultimate mold design, no overthinking, just robots. Maybe I'm lazy, but if something is stupid but it works, it isn't stupid. All this expansion meant our original copper deposit was rapidly running dry. However, thanks to my robotic network I was able to set up new mining outposts in the record time, also using -MK2, that here have 80% resource drain, so more ores for free. Once again, it was constructed, connecting the outpost to our base. With the logistics in place, I started building a global robot network that quickly covered the entire southern section of the Sina wall, expanding its reach further and further, thanks to the blue tech cards and unlock electric furnaces, perfect to replace all those burner ones in electric component factory. Until now I had been running a dedicated coal belt, just to keep those furnaces fed. No more coal hill, but everything has its price. With all the added pollution, the biter attacks have become more and more often, but the walls were doing a great job. The pollution was increasing as factory increased, so we had to expand even more boiler and turbine setup. I can't just scale this indefinitely, so I will need a more sustainable power solution in near future. You know what? Let's work on the power right now. The only reasonable thing to do here is go nuclear, and fortunately we have a massive uranium patch inside our walls. First we mine it with -MK2, then we craft it into happy green rocks and sad green rocks. In Krastorio 2 this also yields stone and iron as a byproducts, so I set up a 5 rows with 7 centrifuges each, with a simple filtration system to sort the outputs. With all these new production lines we were starting again to have big power problems. To avoid that I placed few gas generators, just to help the power grid. To truly harness nuclear power, one research project is absolutely crucial: the Covarex enrichment process. Without it, sustaining fuel production would be impossible. This required another handful of space science, but it wasn't long before the research was complete, and the process was ready to go. I wasted no time setting up the enrichment area, right next to the main uranium processing plant. In Krastorio 2 this is a bit more complex, because you have to account for stone byproducts. However, lots of centrifuges, smart inserter filtering, and careful planning, the build was finished. I quickly put all the collected uranium to 3.5 and started the processing loop. Now it's just a waiting game until we have a near infinite supply of those precious rocks. That waiting time was the perfect opportunity to prepare the nuclear reactor setup. A 4-reactor core will be a great basis. On Krastorio, nuclear power is seriously buffed, since each reactor puts out 250 megawatts, but the neighborhood bonus is only 25%. That gives our 2-on-2 setup a total potential of 1.6 gigawatts. I placed exactly 32 heat exchangers, connected water pipes there and another pipes for steam, and set up chests for requesting fuel cells, and remove depleted ones. With rows upon rows of turbines we are already hitting 1.2 gigawatts, even though we are only 75% of the full potential. Power issues? Officially solved. With that insane power surplus, I immediately expanded the LDS production. More machines, upgraded inserters, all in preparation for high-frequency rocket launching schedule. I did the same for the rocket fuel, just to make sure we can support building hundreds of rockets. As for the rockets themselves, I set up 4 siloses, all supplied via bots. In the meantime I decided it was time to build a tank, and I thought, Why not to try getting higher quality? I prepared machine and I was ready to grind and grind it, but gambling was on my side, and on the first try we got the uncommon one. Now it's time for the real work, space expedition preparation. We have seen all this process a million times, so let's fast track it. Starting from essentials, turrets and collectors, then ammo production and ore processing, few thrusters on the bottom and chemical plants to make fuel. Actually, there is a small catch in Krastorio too, as we have to use oxygen and hydrogen, not water. Luckily, same water as before is still enough for that fuel. No need to vent things out, so just a bigger hassle to overcome. Next, I added solar panels and accumulators to power all those machines. All machines started working, processing and making all necessary materials, and the ship was finally ready for a test run. However, a good eye could have noticed that I totally forgot about cargo bays. Thanks to the extended length of undergrounds in Krastorio, I managed to quickly place 4 of them, without having to relocate all the existing machinery. Our first destination is Vulcanus, so I packed lots and lots of useful and hard to make items, got myself onto the orbit, fired up thrusters, and after a while, I landed on a totally different world. There was no time for doing nothing though. I quickly set up calcite mine, and to achieve starting power, I prepared few steam turbines. Next I focused on the sulfuric acid geysers. I got my hands on the 100% of that patch, and put pipe near my base. This was the key to starting cold liquefaction, which gave me the steady supply of lubricant. And with that, nothing other left to do than making our first foundry. Now we need more, much more, so I ordered few advanced items from Nauvis, and prepared a small tungsten carbide production. Now that the foundries are with us, it's time to scale up the actual material crafting. I started with molten iron, then copper, same style. Any excess stone will be made into landfill and burned in lava, and molten materials go straight on the main fluid bus. With a steady supply of molten materials, I moved to the intermediate production. Crafting items like steel plates, iron gears, rods and beams is now easier than ever. The best part? There is absolutely no need for coke anymore, so no more harsh steel. Expand with more space, so I went to kill small demolisher. Lots of gun turrets supplied with ammo should do the trick. The only thing left was to actually find that demolisher, which wasn't easy, and when I was trying to locate it from nowhere, the gun turrets found it. At least they did the job perfectly. This operation also gave us personal tungsten patch. I pulled power over there and wanted to start mining it, but how it appears MK2 miners can't do that, which totally messed my plans. Since we need big mining drills, I could order the essential parts from Nauvis, like the red circuits and electric engines, but I'm not doing that this time. I went through the whole process of making them. At least I can do it faster here than on Nauvis. So first normal engines, then they quickly go to become electric ones. Green circuits through assemblers supplied from foundries. On top of them red ones, so cables from foundry, green chips from previous factory, and electric components. Again, about them, the plastic was already ready, so just few assemblers, belts and provider chests will do the job. Just one more thing, or two things, glass and silicon. For glass, I use sand from crushes, fed by stone from the network, and 3 furnaces. For silicon I set up a similar system, 2 filtration plants and 3 furnaces. Water from refinery, with each filtration plant having its own dedicated sand production. After all that effort, we finally crafted the first big mining drill, which we can finally use to make tungsten mine, get the belts moving, and start mining it for real. Back to the base, I wanted to create a snapping blueprint to align with my already built grid, and it was harder than I thought. I even had the Factorio Friday Facts open, where they discussed how much easier it is to adjust the snapping now, yet I still struggled to fit it, but I was determined. I tried and tried continuously, and somehow, I'm still not entirely sure how, I got it to work. With the blueprint finished, I went back to add more resources to the fluid bus. On Vulcanus we still need rare metals, which we produce from lava, with the addition of hydrogen chloride. This process gives molten rare metals, plus molten iron. To handle the extra molten iron I set up a small valve, tank with pump, that will prioritize that iron in the network. Next, again I wanted to claim more territory, so I set up a line of turrets and started wandering around to aggro the demolisher faster. While I was doing that, the beast found me first, but we took it down in no time with very little effort. Finally it was time to build the actual factory, meaning science. We don't need much, just a small steady production that runs 24/7. I set up 2 foundries for the metallurgical science cards, 2 for tungsten beams, and servers to assemble the final tech cards, getting additional productivity step. These go directly into chests, which then are fed straight into the rockets. Speaking of rockets, we need materials to build them locally. Right under the orbital collector I placed 2 foundries for LDS, and connected all necessary fluids and materials. Next on the list was rocket fuel. Since we don't have much light oil here, I chose the hydrogen chloride recipe. I thought it would be easy. Just small addition of oxygen from atmospheric condensers, right? Nope! Obviously you can't use those here, because of the pressure. So we are back to separating it from water. That brought us to the final piece, blue chips. Those are actually easy this time, just a few assemblers and acid pipe. Red chips delivered via bots and a foundry to make rare metals. All of that combined finally allowed the rocket to be built, and I sent the first science delivery into orbit. Back on Nauvis, we will spend that science on cliff explosives, cold liquefaction and asteroid reprocessing. Though I probably won't even touch that last one for the next 20 hours. Before heading to the next planet, I needed to make a few changes to the Vulcanus base to ensure it was self-sufficient. I started by rebuilding the raffineries to use a better cold liquefaction recipe. Since the process is pretty much the same as usual, it was finished after adding just a few more chemical plants. While my attention was focused on Vulcanus, the Nauvis base became totally eco-friendly, clearing up the pollution on its own. Nice! Now something really crucial, mark my words, that belt is going to be essential in the future. With everything ready and working, it was time for another journey, Fulgora. I packed my things, hopped into a rocket and headed straight back to Nauvis. Not so fast, champs! I needed to make some changes here too, starting with upgrading the miners on the uranium patch, which caused the pollution to slowly start coming back. Next was designing the full production of purple cards. Here they require sad uranium rocks, which is why I set up a better drills for uranium. Plus we needed red transport belts and productivity modules. I placed prepared design onto its spot and connected all materials. Watch how it starts working, and how I totally overbuilded it, to the point that half of the unit doesn't work. I needed purple science to better prepare for Fulgora. The first key technology was elevated rails, then automation 3, which already taken its place in green chips production, and finally beacons. With those ready, I packed all the other essentials, jumped into a rocket and headed for Fulgora, with a small stop totally not on the way, to grab some fillings from Vulcanus, and happily landed on the purple-pink surface of the stormy planet. And here we are, a year and a half later, same planet, same start, running around gathering scrap from ruins and looking for those ultra mega turbo vaults to unlock the recyclers. With that I choose that island to become my base, and a place that still don't know how working blueprint. Next, I started covering a second island with accumulators, which as it turns out are buffed in Krastorio to 10 megajoules per unit, which is really cool. With power secured, I could start automating recycling. While I was gathering a few crucial materials, I looked through the Factoriopedia and realized we can't craft blue circuits here, as there is no way to get rare metals. The only way to obtain them is through scrap. We are going to need a lot of recyclers. But that's problem for future me, so I didn't worry about it, and went back to clearing the island, setting up the grid and placing more lightning rods. After the big cleanup program, it was time for proper production lines, starting with chromium ore processing. Then the solution goes to the foundry to make plates, from which I could finally build the first electromagnetic plant. But to sustain the factory here we need resources, a lot of resources, so it was time to prepare the recyclinator. It sounds serious, but it's just 2 rows of recyclers and 2 belts. At the end of the recycler line, I set up a storage unit to filter items from the main belt into chests, and once they are full, they get fed into the main recycler loop, getting destroyed. Simple as that. Okay, time for the rest of the Fulgora fatigue. So 2 electroplants for superconductors, then 4 electroplants with modules and beacons for supercapacitors, and 2 electroplants for electrolyte. Another crucial production is accumulators, needed for both science and power system. So 6 electromagnetic plants and requester chests will get the job done. Now the real new stuff. Collecting certain items here is really hard. Take plastic. Normally you have to wait to get enough LDS and recycle them into plastic, but I found a way to solve that without needing a million recyclers. Krastorio has a really cool coal filtration process. From heavy oil you can produce normal coal. Since the oceans are so vast, I don't see any reason not to take advantage of that, to make coal, and subsequently some additional plastic. Before expanding further, I added more accumulators to the power island, which is nearly half covered by now. With that additional power, I started on electromagnetic science production. 2 fully modules and beaconed electromagnetic plants will do the job, followed by a few servers, also with the prod modules, hitting that double productivity bonus again. The tech card production was ready to work. Now just a few minor details. With the expanded production I needed more materials, so I did a quick copy-paste of the recyclinator and set up the final rocket part factory. Once again I'm getting oxygen from water and light oil for free from the oil oceans. But here is a big twist. As it turns out, you can do the water electrolysis in the electromagnetic plant. You say, Omega? Incredible. Electrofing and electroplant. Insane. With that key knowledge, I deconstructed the entire previous setup and used 1 electromagnetic plant for the same exact output. In the meantime, I sent a shipment of pink tech cards back to Nauvis and researched the upgraded lightning rods. I quickly set up their production and started swapping them all over the base. They have better coverage and harvest more power from lightnings, both of which are very welcome upgrades. Now that I have 2 planets producing different sciences, it was time to add another ship to my fleet. For now, an exact copy of the first one will serve as a dedicated transportation vessel. Whew, that was quick. Speedrunning Fulgora wasn't exactly on my list, Now we are heading back to Vulcanus for upgrades. We will be jumping 2 belt tiers at once, so we need proper belt factory, and I mean real factory. First I added foundries for the blue and green belts, then a few machines for steel gears. Next came lots of foundries for tanks and beams, fully moduled and beaconed, and lastly huge changes in the tungsten mine, more coverage and beacons for speed. And with that I could upgrade the whole base to the turbo belts. As we need more and more from Vulcanus, adding more siloses was just a matter of time. Alongside that, I finally prepared a fully automated ship that will travel back and forth between all the planets, and I added beacons to the science build. Since we are launching more rockets, the material production definitely needs an upgrade. I started with processing units, moving them to the electromagnetic plants to get that 50% base productivity bonus. I did the same for both green chips, direct production from foundries, and fully beaconed, and for red chips as well. Now the entire process is 100% efficient. Next was rocket fuel. Once again, I fully beaconed the machines and used electromagnetic plant to crack oxygen from water. By that time, the belt production was absolutely eating our tanks and patch, so I set off a journey to calmly talk with neighbors. I definitely need to use more wise words. BAM! Now he is totally convinced to transfer the rights to the terrain to me. With that massive new patch secured, I prepared the station in our base and started laying rails to the mining site. I placed big mining drills across the patch and did all the belt work, using loaders to feed a large buffer and more loaders for the cargo wagons. And after finishing the outpost, I headed back to the base with the first tanks and cargo train. Then I headed back home to Nauvis. It's time to give it some love. Starting with the orbit, better assemblers, productivity modules, more furnaces and definitely more solar panels. Coming back to the surface, I deconstructed and rebuilt our labs, just a temporary setup, fully dependent on bots. Next, in the old coal mine, I placed an orbital collector, and with a circuit setup created by Nilaus, I automated requests from space. Another vital thing is biomass. I won't say what is it for just yet, but the recipe is incredibly slow, so beacons and speed modules are going everywhere. To support this, I set up a few electromagnetic plants below the old coal power plant to manufacture those speed modules. We aren't stopping there, in fact we are speeding things up, with turbo belts across the entire base. I also set up a small hydrogen chloride production, with the productivity modules for max efficiency. I'm also swapping out the component assemblers, for not even tier 3 ones but straight to electro plants, and placing big mining drills on the stone patch. The old smelters have to go, but to avoid killing base I started with the rare metals. Since those ores are limited here, I'm switching to the foundry recipe. Also thanks to the Krastorio 2, we can do a really fun thing, washing ores. For that recipe we also need to build ore washing machines, which is where the previously prepared hydrogen chloride comes in. The byproduct is dirty water that we could delete in burning towers, but the pollution would even kill the undead engineer. Instead I opted for filtration plants, to not only clean that water, but also to have a small chance to get additional rare earth ores. And with that the foundries were melting the washed ores. Now the big reveal regarding the biomass project. Air filtration. Using biomass we can craft filters that absorb pollution from air. Each filter consumes 50 pollution per minute and lasts for 418 seconds. That recipe has a 90% of getting dirty filter back that can be cleaned and used again. To sum up, one filter can delete 400 pollution and they are really cheap. I decided to deploy them starting with the biomass factory, which itself makes 150 pollution per minute. Since pollution in Factorio is placed in the chunk where the machine is, placing cleaners in the same chunk helps contain that pollution and decreases the flow to other chunks. Or at least that's how I understand it. I did the same for the new foundry setup, and I can tell you already, we will be using them a lot. Now it was time for other smelters. Following the same design as rare metal setup, I placed 3 foundries for the molten copper, deconstructed all the iron smelters and placed another 3 for molten iron. Next I got rid of all the old builds. Red and green science production is gone, the belt mine is gone, and the wood for circuit is gone. I also placed more pollution vacuums around all the new foundries. With the space cleared, I quickly used the design for green chips from Vulcanus, placed it 4 times here, done some belt work, and in no time we are back with electronic circuits. I also added air cleaners here to minimize any further issues. As you can see, the filtration program works incredibly well. Remember that really crucial belt I told you to keep an eye on? Yeah, it was absolutely, legitimately, truly useful. After green ones I moved to red ones. Most of the infrastructure was already in place, so with just a few more machines, modules, inserters and belts, we also had a new production of them. The last one left were the blue circuits. I used the same setup here, machines, inserters, modules and a few beacons, and the foundry to produce rare metals on site. I also included more air cleaners here. In no time we will totally get rid of any pollution inside the walls. To ensure that happens I added them to the raffinery as well, the uranium mine and the uranium processing as well. With all materials ready, it's time to rebuild all tech cards productions. Using new machinery, starting with the red ones, few assemblers, electronic plants, foundries, beacons, modules everywhere, and some power poles, and the line was active. Afterwards bored, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I should have finished the other rocket part production lines first. With foundries and beacons on my disposal, the first one, low density structures, were a piece of cake. Next, rocket fuel, trickier one, so I had to not only fit it within the substations, but also use as much of beacons as possible. It is the slowest recipe I have ever seen, resulting in this absolute abomination of a production line. With that finished, I went back to science project. Next were green cards. In reality, the same boring stuff as red ones, so after that came the blue ones. This time I spent more time rethinking the design to fit it between the substations, but I also sorted that out easily. In the leftover space between the blue and green cards, I set up a small server build to make use of those space data, and with that we have a production of 4 out of 6 data card types. Following that achievement, I copied the server build for the purple cards and prepared electromagnetic plans for productivity modules. With that, production was online, allowing us to finally come back to the researching. But not so fast. The last one left were yellow ones. I will call them rocket cards, as the recipe uses all rocket part ingredients. Because of that, the build took only a matter of seconds to finish. All of these new builds heavily impacted power, so to avoid a blackout, I added last pack of turbines to the nuclear reactor. I finished the Nauvis reconstruction with a few more air filters around the fuel production, the most polluting area, and around all the other new science card productions. Next on the list were some personal upgrades, roboports and stuff, with an eye on quality. On my first try I got 2 uncommon roboports MK2, and 2 normal ones, a great start. Another addition was the mech armor. I unlocked it and with insane lag got an uncommon one on the first try. Just kidding, it took a bit of work to get it, but look at that grid, I can fit everything in there now. With personal upgrades done, I realized I hadn't upgraded the raffinery. So I slapped productivity modules everywhere, added speed beacons to cracking, plastic production and sulfuric acid production, and finish it off with filtratoinators here, and here. After that, I sent up another space platform starter, but quickly forgot about making anything meaningful with it. Then I hopped onto ship 1 and headed to Fulgora, as a new problem had arisen. We had run out of scrap to mine. After scanning the map for a bit, I chose medium-sized island with small but very dense 30 million patch. I quickly built a station there, prepared a huge chest, connected it with loaders to the wagons, added lots of accumulators all over the place, and finally covered the whole patch with big mining drills, with small addition of speed modules. With that, I returned to the base with first transport, and watched all the production lines start scrapping the scrap once again. 2 planets done, so there was nothing else to do but head to Gleba. While preparing a lot of different materials, machines and items, I noticed really funny thing. Reinforced concrete can only be sent to space by 100 item stack, while a reinforced plates, the better concrete from Krastorio 2, has a normal 200 item stack rocket. It should probably be the other way around, maybe stacking to 50 or so, but I won't be complaining. Just I was about to leave Nauvis, I mistakenly, or maybe miraculously, look at the raffinery. The oil had run out. Happily, my factory does not rely on oil from the Strait of Hormuz, so I simply dragged long pipe to another oil deposit near uranium, and the problem was quickly solved. Then I started my journey to Gleba, with quick step over at Vulcanus orbit to grab plenty of belts, pipes and foundries. Not long after, I landed on Gleba for the first time, the most not liked planet in space age. Without wasting time, I started placing the main grid, and while the roboports were charging, I went for a short exploratory walk around my landing place. During the walk, I mined the first copper and iron plants, researching heating towers and agricultural towers. After that, I got my first biochamber, and spent some time grinding a few pentapod eggs. For what, you may ask? To make more biochambers, not only for factory but also to suspend eggs in machines, as we, if we want, can get them later from recycling. The next step was power. For now we use solar panels and accumulators, but that definitely won't be enough for the future. The only logical step was preparing a power plant using heating towers. With buffed heat exchangers and turbines, only 4 and 20 of them were necessary to use all the available power from 4 heating towers. Worth remembering that these don't have the neighborhood bonus, so the base output remains the same. With power plant ready, I ordered some fuel from Nauvis, and while I was waiting for ship 1 to return, I died in the most obnoxious way. Few eggs that have left had hatched, and those spiders killed me. Not bad, you would say. Yes, but they were on my spawn point, so they kept killing me again and again as soon as I respawned, as I couldn't do anything to them with that basic pistol. I tried running to my body to gather my items, to no avail. I thought I was deadlocked, but luckily they were dying off on their own, so it only took like 3 more deaths, and they were gone. Finally, I could go back to work, which I started by laying down lots of landfill to make space for the future factory. Then I prepared a small bioflux production line to get a stockpile that will provide materials for nutrients, and to grind some seeds for both Jellinat and Yumako. I especially needed Jellinat seeds to create the special soil they grow on, as there wasn't natural places near my base, at least not in quantities I required. I placed it in the closest possible location and once again used plenty of landfill to expand our space. I will be making a bus. Again. with one belt for each: Yumako, Jelly Nut, Bioflux and Spoilage. The first production line is rocket fuel, heavily needed by the power plants. It's very easy setup, just a little bit of Jelly Nut and Bioflux, so 4 biochambers and few beacons, plenty inserters to get rid of the spoilage, and pipes with water. But we still didn't have Bioflux, so I quickly prepared a basic factory of it that produces it from fruits, saving lots of spoiling time. To prevent losing seeds from fruits that will spoil at the end of the bus, I built a small seed grinder there to process all the extras into as many seeds as possible. Something unexpected happened on the farm. Oh, right, we are playing on Deathworld. To deal with that small inconvenience, I grabbed few Tesla turrets, and after a while the problem was solved. Actually, not quite. This huge attack happened while my factory was still small, so we need to invest in some bigger guns. Time for the artillery! When I was researching it, I went to destroy some nearby pentapod nests, all of a sudden inventing a blueprint with ammo inside it, which was really helpful to fight those stompers and pentapods. With the map cleared, it was time to expand farmland and grow more plants. So, 2 fully activated Yumako farms, and 2 not so fully activated Jelly Nut ones. In the meantime, the artillery had finished researching, so I transported it to Gleba, placed them down, surrounded with lots of Tesla turrets, and...
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
After that defeat, I returned to make other production lines. Now it was time for actual science. I used good old Nilaus's design here, and not long after starting it, we got our first transport of Gleba science to orbit. With that science, the third research I chose was captivity. I built a defensive line to protect the farming areas. I set up one near the red fruit farm, and second near pink farm, since pentapods only attack the places where you create spores. With the plant secured, I started researching carbon fiber, relocated the rocket silos to more suitable place, and prepared second bioflux crafter, which we'll never even use. Insane! What now? The last needed item from Gleba, carbon fiber. I quickly repurposed all the excess spoilage from burning to make some carbon itself. With that ready, I jumped into making the actual fiber, which is really easy. With it, I could make a few stack inserters for the future, and went for a quick exploratory walk to see if there were better places nearby to grow fruits. Oh, right, Deathworld. I hope they don't attack us at least. But to be sure, a few more Tesla turrets won't hurt. Now it's time to leave this pesky planet, with all the hope that we don't need to come back anytime soon. Back to Nauvis. It is finally time to make use of that interesting new purple material, so I started researching its technology. In the meantime, I went back to the Sina wall, with one and only plan: gain control over a biter base. Launching an attack with prepared lasers made killing the bugs easy. However, as it turned out, the lasers couldn't hit the worms, so I had to deal with them myself. And I closed the whole base with walls, connecting it to my factory grid, and with unfortunate defense placement, we nearly lost 2 nests. Without thinking twice, I started reprogramming the bases with the capture rockets, and in no time we had clear access to biter eggs. After that, I spotted a few big problems with research, specifically the space data. Time to completely rebuild it. I added more collectors on long arm from both sides, some storage bed, and only 3 crushers, but fully beaconed. Then I set up 12 furnaces for iron ore smelting. I used productivity modules everywhere for maximum efficiency, and with that we had a new shiny space data production. We have eggs, right? So it's time for the biggest upgrade in the game, biolabs. I had few quality modules by then, so why not use them, giving us 4 uncommon labs. With them it was time to redesign the research area. It was a simple one, as many beacons as possible, and ensuring that this bit will consume more cards than you can currently produce. With the new labs in place, I destroyed the old ones, and added plenty of oxygen cleaners, since each lab can produce more than 150 pollution per minute. You might be wondering how I got those quality modules. Surprise surprise, I had prepared a small upgrading station under old power plant, and it was time to upgrade that as well. I added few electromagnetic plants to make actual quality modules. Above them I placed recyclers to destroy excess modules and set up a circuit system to tell when there is too many of them. I did the same for productivity modules to start grinding with the best of the best. Yes. I'm mentally dead. I know. With all of those new production lines, we were drowning in dirty air filters, so I expanded their processing to a bigger, faster and higher quality setup. With new supply of filters, I placed a huge drill on the purple material deposit, the Immersite, reaching a max mining speed with the least possible pollution output, thanks to modules mixing. But that made me think, where were we are making the most pollution? It turns out that biomass, the material needed for filters, generates the most. Fortunately, I had a solution for that. Now we had access to egg crushing technology that artificially gives biomass, so there was no way I wasn't going to use it. Thanks to Quality Module Maker, I could craft 2 rare pump jacks, which I placed on the 2 only mineral water deposits inside our walls. We have to save as much as possible. In the meantime, the Immersite drill was drilling, but we weren't using any of that ore, so I went there and started preparing crushing station. Immersite gives us Immersite powder, which is actually what we want, and sand, a totally useless item here. The powder goes to the furnaces, and with the addition of rare metals creates Immersite plates, a crucial future material. During that time, the module maker produced a few uncommon productivity modules, so I used all of them in our bio labs, boosting research without making more labs or cards. For the next science we will need plenty of electric engines. In the spot where robot frame production used to be, I set up a large crafting of them, using as many modules and beacons as possible, and connecting all the outputted engines to a provider chest. Now it's time for those cards. Advanced tech cards. In the same style as before, I prepared the servers and put there my best productivity modules. I set up a blank card crafting above them and prepared all the belts for the other materials. We have engines, so time for Immersite gears. 6 assemblers with best modules, as Immersite is quite limited, so they were up and running in no time. The last item was lithium-ion batteries, few chemical plants near servers, also with the best modules, along with a foundry for copper plates. The only thing left was the lithium. Lithium is a really tricky one. For that, we have those 2 small rare pump jacks on the mineral water deposits. First, I prepared the final step, which uses water and lithium powder to produce lithium and excess chlorine. To make the powder, we combine mineral water and hydrogen chloride. I will use excess chlorine to supply the start of the chain, and just add hydrogen from atmospheric condensers. The production is ready. I started it and quickly discovered that somehow we are making more chlorine than we are using. I don't know if that's intended, but okay, we have infinite chlorine production now. The last thing left was air filtration, and with that we started making the first advanced tech cards. With that finished, it's time for new ship, nuclear one, faster than ever before. But before using it, Nauvis had a small power problem. Time for Krastorio 2 fusion. For that we need a little bit of tritium, made from U-235 in centrifuges, and a little bit of heavy water. Then placing the reactor itself with 20 advanced turbines, and the reactor was ready to use. It worked, but it hit me. It was totally not worth it. It uses 500 megawatts just to operate, and needs big fuel production chain to sustain. In my opinion, one more normal uranium one will be much better than dealing with all of that. So when I used all the pre-made fuel, I destroyed the setup, and in its place started building copied said nuclear reactor. However, this time with much more cleaner turbine setup, cleaner power cables, and more optimized reactor design. That view always takes my breath away. I could watch this all the time. Those glorious turbines are awesome. But if I did that, I wouldn't finish this video until May of the next year. So going back to work. Another new space ship. This time with more turbines, increased ammo production and rockets. This ship is capable to reach the last planet, Aquilo. But ahead of that, as you could see, I used new chemical plants. They have 50% base productivity bonus, useful to make more rockets for less. This will also be very effective at the rare earth or cleanup station. I don't want to look for another patch, so getting even more from that tiny starting patch will be a lifesaver. Now it is time for Aquilo preparation, as plenty of items will be needed there. While I was gathering everything, I researched the planet and quickly flew to Aquilo's orbit, landing on its surface for the first time. No time to enjoy the view. Time to rock all the stones out of existence and clear the whole island. Next, I placed lots of solar panels and even more accumulators to start storing power. When the power was generating, I quickly designed a steam power plant. Since heat exchangers are also massively buffed in Krastorio 2, we only need one for every 3 heating towers. Then 5 turbines to generate electricity and a chemical plant to melt ice. It will be a really solid first power supply here. To expand, we need more ice platforms. So it was time to set up a huge production of them. One advanced chemical plant will supply 4 assemblers, with both ice and ammonia, and if needed, the excess ammonia will be burned in a flare stack. Then, typically, I had a full blackout, so I had to manually pick up roboports, connect all the solars to chemical plant, and wait until the ice melts again. After power was restored, I crafted the first cryogenic plant, with the intention of making more rocket fuel. But we needed iron plates, which aren't exactly easy to get here. Plus, this time to make lithium, we only need brine and ammonia, no need for holmium plates. With those revelations, I chose to make lithium first. One cryogenic plant will make normal lithium for hot fluoroketon, and supply 3 furnaces to make lithium plates for more cryogenic plants. Now it was time for fuel, but for that we need oil, so I placed pump jacks on all available oil patches, and did some dirty fluid and heat pipe work. There was nothing else left but combining that oil with ammonia and make first solid fuel cubes. Then I went down to the island with brine deposits and started building another mining outpost. Same story, pump jacks, normal pipes and heat pipes, and we got brine for lithium. Finally, the last pipeline, and the most tricky one, fluorine. Why? Because it is really far away from the main island, and we still need to gather power and heat and pull the pipe back to the base. But after a while of hard work, the fluorine started flowing flawlessly. Mixing all those previously prepared resources, we get hot fluoroketon, which has to be cooled down. Since we need quite a lot, beacons are very welcomed here. In the end, we do need rocket fuel, so I set up a machinery to do so. Similar to cooling station, I used lots of beacons to speed up crafting, and an electromagnetic plant to separate oxygen and hydrogen from water. The oxygen goes toward the fuel, and the hydrogen is burned in a flare stack. With all the necessary materials ready, it was time for rockets. 4 siloses will be more than enough for now. Data cards are the last items, and yes, items, as this time you have more than one here. But first things first, the normal cryogenic cards. They are the same as the standard game, so I just use cryogenic plants, beacons and a requester chest. And now a quick preparation for a second type of data cards, the matter ones. We need to transport several materials. Plastic, rare metals, immersite crystals, tungsten beams, holmium plates, and bioflags. For that we definitely need more cargo space on our ultra mega ship. But that's for later, as we are leaving this cold planet and heading back to Nauvis. Now we need to actually make cryogenic tech cards. In the place of production of not used anymore red cards, I set up a bunch of servers, with the best productivity modules, and the blank card production. In no time making first of those cards. With those I researched 2 key technologies, quantum processors and captive barter spawners. And as fast as possible, I set up a crafting for those on the Aquilo surface. The advantage of this design, it is fully tallable, so if we need more I can just copy and paste it. Now time to make those crystals. I started with gathering hydrogen and nitrogen from atmosphere. Then I combined them in a chemical plant to get ammonia, which goes to another chemical plant, that mixes it with mineral water and rare metals to create nitric acid. And that acid goes to a bunch of other chemical plants, where combined with Immersite powder make Immersite crystals. As they require a lot of materials, we will also use the best productivity modules here. I finished the entire factory with plenty of air vacuums, as each of the machines produce around 250 pollution per minute. With those crystals I fully packed the spaceship and sent it to Aquilo, producing the first matter data. This went into the rocket as soon as possible, and onto our platform, that returns to Nauvis, where in the place of the old green tech cards production, I set up a production of actual matter tech cards. The last thing we really want from Aquilo are fusion components. This time the space age fusion, not the Krastorio one. I used epic quality modules in their crafting, and grounded them for a few minutes, to get 8 uncommon fusion generators and 2 uncommon reactors. What do we need those specific ones? For the last ship project, but we'll come back to that later. For now we have to make fusion fuel, which requires tritium, so we have to crawl back to that. A few centrifuges, modules, belts and beacons are more than enough for our needs. Then they go to the cryogenic plant, and when combined with ammonia and holmium plates, we got precious fusion fuel, fully made on Nauvis. I lied, we need one more thing from Aquilo, railguns. So I set up a machine to make a small amount of them, for my plans. Now it's time to reveal the last ship project, which is the last ship that we'll ever need. Here again, thanks to Nilaus, for inspiration of the defenses, and the circuit item lamps monitor. His designs are best of the best. This ship is not only able to reach the solar system edge, not the final destination today, but moreover it can also produce Promethium data cards. On Krastorio 2, this process doesn't require Biter X, just asteroided quantum processors, which honestly makes it the best change crafting recipe from this modpack. With the ship ready, I powered the fusion reactor with solar panels, and in no time it was ready for its first voyage. And maybe, just maybe, I lied again, as we need one more special ship, but I had copyrights to that name, so I had to call it that. That's a really good excuse to lie. This last ship will make singularity science all by itself. For singularity cards we need all types of asteroids, a charged matter stabilizer and matter in fluid form. Fortunately, all of them can be obtained from space, so the fully self-sustainable ship went on its first run. Then I started charging the last ship, with materials for ammo and fuel. Not long after, the ship was ready to go, having totally zero problems on its way through the solar system edge, and after a while it started gathering Promethium asteroids and making data cards. With that precious cargo, the last ship went back, giving us roughly 33,000 of data cards. In the place of the old blue tech cards production, we will be able to recraft it for more than 66,000 of tech cards. How, you may ask? Those cards are made in quantum computers, which have a base 50% productivity bonus. Then we'll also use rare productivity modules, giving us more than 100% of final science addition. Plus we are using the new unlocked recipe, that with the use of fluoroketon gives us 6 tech cards from 5 data cards and eggs. The fluoroketon is returned as hot, so just cooling it down ends the whole loop. All of that results in more than 2.4 times more tech cards from the number of data cards. All that science goes to the biolabs, so we can start researching two last needed technologies, antimatter reactors and singularity labs. In between the research I prepared processing plant, where stone will be melted to raw matter. Then the matter will be used to fill matter rods, which go into the antimatter reactor, capable of giving us 3 gigawatts of pure power. I prepared a concrete block, and placed there a lot of upgraded accumulators, in hopes of storing energy for the final goal. And in between of that, researching 5 levels of productivity research, before starting the final research on the winning machine. That technology requires 100,000 tech cards, but with biolabs and productivity bonuses, I shrank that to only around 28,000. Yet the Fulgora base still had some issues producing tech cards, and not long after Vulcanus also joined in those struggles. So I had to wait a little bit longer, but nothing could stop me from getting my hands on that machine. I thought I had everything prepared, but when I tried to craft it, it turned out we needed 500 foundations. So I set up a quick production line of them, and in no time started crafting the intergalactic transreceiver. I sent it to my workstation on the concrete block, placed it in the center, and fueled the antimatter reactors with the prepared rods, now into charges with 30 terajoules of power. Here worth mentioning that it works just like an accumulator, so all of my build and charge accumulators that you can see here are totally useless. And it was charging and 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 charging, and because of the antimatter reactors, all of my pollution decrease attempts went for nothing, and charging and charging and charging and charging and charging and charging and charging, and after 76 hours I could activate the transmission to my homeworld.
Estimated time required 268 years.
268 years? What am I gonna to do in all of that time? I think I have an idea.